So welcome to this talk entitled Common Nutrition Myths Debunked. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy that folks are able to join us today. Before we begin, let me share some information about myself. I'm Dr. Trish Murray, physician, best-selling author, and the Health Catalyst speaker. I've been working with patients and educating people from particularly a functional medicine perspective for about 8-9 years now, but I've been also practicing osteopathic manipulative medicine for over 20 years now. My primary goal is to give you the information you need to take control of your health and transform your life. So now let's get to it. When it comes to nutrition, knowing what to eat, how much, and how often can be really confusing. We constantly are bombarded with media headlines and advertisements about the latest trends. But these messages don't always have our health in mind. Their focus is to get you to spend your money, not help you be healthy. Now, if you can think of one thing that you've seen recently, or maybe in a commercial in the past or something, share a nutrition message that you've heard and were like, what? Or surprised about. And if you think of it, just type it in the chat. And of course, at the end, and as I present along the way, if you come up with particular questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. And at the end of the presentation, I will definitely answer any questions that folks come up with. But if anybody can think of kind of a nutrition concept you've heard that you were like, what are they talking about? Type it in the chat. So myth number one. How many of you have heard the quote that all calories are created equally? Well, sorry to tell you, because they aren't. This is because the body uses and stores calories differently depending on the nutrients each food is comprised of. In order to understand why calories differ, let's first take a look at different nutrients and how the body handles them. You may have heard foods being described of in terms of what's called density. This refers to a different nutrient having more or fewer calories packed into the same weight, making them either higher or lower calorie density. Calories in foods are grouped as either fats, alcohols, carbohydrates, or proteins. Nutrition labels in the United States use these rules of thumb. 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories. 1 gram of alcohol equals 7 calories. 1 gram of protein has 4 calories. And 1 gram of carbohydrate, which would be consisting of sugars and or starches, has 4 calories also. And 1 gram of fiber is estimated by the US Food and Drug Administration to be 1.5 calories. Now, fiber is a carbohydrate, but it is not easily digested in the human digestive tract. So what happens is we eat the fiber, it goes past the intestines where we absorb stuff. It gets down into our colon, and the microbiome, or the bacteria that live in your colon, called your microbiome, digest fiber for us. So with all this breakdown of different calories, this is why eating 300 calories of chicken is not the same as eating 300 calories of cake, for example. Myth number 2, carbs make you fat. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard this one. In fact, many popular diets are based on the myth that carbs make us fat. In reality, carbs aren't the enemy, but there are different types of carbs you should be aware of. let's take a closer look at carbohydrates so you can learn how to distinguish the good from the bad. So what are carbs? Carbs are carbohydrates, are one of three macronutrients. The three macronutrients are carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. The primary function of the macronutrients is to provide the body with energy. Dietary carbohydrates can be split into three main categories. Sugars. Sugars are sweets, which are short-chain carbohydrates found in all sorts of foods. And examples are, the scientific names for the sugars are glucose, fructose, galactose, and sucrose. Starches, which is the next category, are long chains of glucose molecules, which eventually do get broken down into glucose in the digestive system, but they are longer chains. And finally, the third type of carbohydrate, as we said before, is fiber. And again, humans cannot digest fiber, although the bacteria in your digestive system can make use of some of them. So you notice that whether the carbohydrates are short or long chain, they still get converted down to sugar, glucose, for example. Also, the problem is with carbs is when they are consumed in excess, the body does turn the carbs into fat to store as a reserve energy source. So this, in excess, is when carbs do and can make you fat. And not all carbs are created equal. Carbs are often referred to as simple or complex carbs, or whole versus refined carbs. Now, whole carbs are generally considered healthy because they are unprocessed and contain the fiber found naturally in the food. These include vegetables, whole fruits, legumes, potatoes, and whole grains. Whole food sources of carbohydrates are also commonly loaded with nutrients. Now, on the other hand, refined carbs include sugar-sweetened beverages, such as fruit juices, sodas, and so on, pastries, white bread, white pasta, white rice, and others. These carbs are highly processed, meaning the natural fiber has been removed, and these are associated with health problems like obesity and type 2 diabetes. Additionally, refined carbohydrate foods are generally lacking in essential nutrients. So just in case you're still a little unclear on which carbs are good and which are not, let's take a look at a very specific list. So good carbs. Vegetables. Basically, folks, all of them. It is best to eat a variety of vegetables every day of all different colors. As you know, I always recommend eating the rainbow. As I always explain, that vegetables of different colors provide you with different vitamins, different minerals, and different phytonutrients depending on the color of the vegetable. Another good carb, of course, is whole fruits, apples, bananas, strawberries, etc. And again, eat different fruits of different colors because, again, based on their color, they're going to be full of different vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients. Next, good carbs, legumes, lentils, kidney beans, peas, etc. Nuts is another great carbohydrate or category that fits in the carb category too, that is good. Almonds, walnuts, hazelnuts, macadamia nuts, peanuts, cashews, etc. Seeds, chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, etc. Now, one thing about flax seeds, I always like to make sure I mention this caveat. Flax seeds, you do not want to eat the whole seed. You want to grind it up or mill it. So you can either purchase it ground, or you can get a coffee grinder and put your flax seeds in there and grind them up right when you're going to use them. The other thing about flax seeds you want to remember is that you want to keep them when you store them in the refrigerator or the freezer, because if you leave them at room temperature just up in the cabinet, they tend to go rancid in a reasonably short amount of time. So you want to keep them cold and refrigerated so that doesn't happen. And the final one that's listed here as a good carb are whole grains. Choose grains that are truly whole, such as pure oats, quinoa, and brown rice, and others that we could list. Now, what are the bad carbs? First and foremost, folks, sugary drinks, soda, even the vitamin water out there that's high in sugar, fruit juices. These are bad carbs. Another category of bad carbs are white bread. White breads and white flours are refined carbohydrates that are low in essential nutrients and bad for your metabolic health, which applies, and this applies to most commercially available bread. Next on the bad list are pastries, cookies, and cakes. These tend to be very high in sugar and refined wheat. Sorry to say, but the next one on the list, guys, is ice cream. Most types of ice cream are very high in sugar, although there can be exceptions. Next are candies and chocolates. If you're gonna eat chocolate, choose high quality dark chocolate. And the final list of food on the bad list of carbs is French fries and potato chips. This is one of my downfalls. Whole potatoes are healthy, but French fries and potato chips are not, as they are refined as this category in cases. They're full of sodium and typically high in trans fats. Trans fats are bad for your cardiovascular health and lead to plaque and heart disease and vascular disease. So you don't want to eat trans fats. So let's go on to health myth or nutritional myth to be debunked number 3. Healthy food is more expensive. Now, I get it. This one's a little tricky. And it depends how you look at the cost. Because when you consider the overall cost of your health, it's clear that processed foods are way more expensive. You see, filling your cart with fresh produce versus cheap frozen and boxed meals can create a difference in your weekly grocery budget. However, the few bucks you save by purchasing unhealthy foods will end up costing you way more in the long run. What we use to fuel our bodies determines how efficiently we burn energy. So feeling sluggish and fatigued all day to treating conditions associated with being overweight or even the lost wages of being sick all affect your bottom line. And spending a little more on healthier foods will save you money on healthcare costs. Countless reports have found how we eat impacts our health. And spending a little more on healthy food can drastically reduce your healthcare costs over time. Let's take a look. There was an article in a magazine called Personal Finance in April of 2019. And here's a quote from that article in that magazine. Prescriptions for healthy foods could help lower the risk of expensive chronic illnesses like cardiovascular disease and diabetes in Medicare and Medicaid patients, a study suggests. Researchers used computer models to calculate that prescribing healthy food to patients could prevent as many as 3.28 million medical conditions such as heart attacks and strokes, and save more than $100 billion in healthcare costs. A study from Tufts University in the medical journal PLOS Medicine found And it goes on to explain that the research team observed people between the ages of 35 and 80, so a very vast amount of age groups. And the people were enrolled in either Medicare or Medicaid. And they used data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey from the past 3 years. The team then came up with 2 scenarios to measure how patients' health and general cost would be impacted with health food prescriptions. The first one, they examined the financial impact of covering 30% of the costs of fruits and vegetables under Medicare and Medicaid. In the second, they expanded to cover the 30% again, but of the cost of not only fruits, veggies, but other healthy foods too, like plant oils, nuts, seafood, and whole grains would also be reduced by 30%. The study determined that under the proposed prescription models, patients would rely less on healthcare. Researchers found that the first food prescription model would decrease healthcare costs by nearly $40 billion, and the second policy model would reduce healthcare costs by more than $100 billion. So if that doesn't get your attention, I don't know what else will, as to spending maybe a little bit more on healthy foods. But we can give you some tips for eating healthy on a budget. First, ask yourself, what is the most expensive thing you buy? For many, the answer will be either meat or dairy. By purchasing less of these items, you can use your found money to use on fresh produce. This will also contribute to a healthier diet overall. If you're worried about protein, then beans, quinoa, and eggs are cheaper than meat products. Swapping some of your meat-heavy meals with plant-based alternatives can help you cut down costs. And if you have a pantry filled with cookies and chips, take that money and instead divert it to produce section and buy more vegetables and fruits. Next, look for local and seasonal produce. I guarantee you'll be spending too much on out-of-season produce. This means you'll have to alter your diet slightly according to what is the season that we're in. Another tip, shop discounted stores for produce. They do exist out there, and in this case, produce may have a slightly shorter storage time, which just means you'll need to prepare and consume food sooner rather than later. And of course, in that same light, the next tip would be to reduce food waste. If you find you're constantly throwing food away, you have to look at why. Is food going bad, or are you simply making too much, or are you buying it and then not cooking it in a reasonable amount of time? Buying and preparing the right amounts in a timely manner will help you cut down on costs. So let's go on to myth number 4. Gluten-free is the only way to go. Well, going gluten-free has exploded recently. And the fact is, only 1% of the population has a genetic condition called celiac disease. People with this condition must absolutely avoid gluten at all costs. And approximately another 20% can have non-celiac gluten sensitivity. But folks, this does leave 79% of the population that do tolerate gluten. Now, the only way to determine a true gluten allergy or sensitivity, well, first of all, the allergy of celiac disease, you must have medical testing done to determine that. But if you suspect that you may have a gluten sensitivity and that gluten is causing you discomfort, then the best way to determine if you are sensitive to gluten is to do what's called an elimination diet. And if you really want to do an elimination diet right, it should be what's called a comprehensive elimination diet. A comprehensive elimination diet cuts out all of the standard American diet foods that a person could be sensitive to all at the same time. Because if you only cut out one and you're sensitive to 2 or 3, you won't get the right results. And yes, that was 21 days, 3 weeks. And the point is, over the 21 days, you cleanse your system and quiet your immune system by 1 full half-life, which scientifically quiets your immune system effectively so that once the 3 weeks are done, you can now then systematically re-challenge each category of food you have eliminated one at a time in a very specific way so that you can identify clearly for yourself which categories you are sensitive to. And of course, I have created an online program entitled the Detox Plus program, and it has a written overview guide. It has 5 support videos, and even 1 supportive call or visit with our health coach that you get with the package to help you through the process. And this program can be found in the shop of my website, and my website's address is discoverhealthfmc.com. Now, please know that gluten-free foods are not automatically healthier. In fact, gluten substitutes can be highly processed and refined and increase calorie content and actually contribute to weight gain. So be very careful with just considering gluten-free as the way only to go. And how about now myth number 5? Low-fat foods are better for you. When trying to watch your weight, the low-fat option may seem to be the way to go, but unfortunately, your good intention may leave you actually worse off. Because low-fat is often synonymous with loaded with salt and cheap refined carbohydrates. As you'll remember, high intake carbs means high intake of sugar, and in excess will raise your body sugar and then get stored as what? Stored as body fat. This will inevitably lead to weight gain, despite your best intention to reduce your fat intake and this all may put you at higher risk of developing diabetes and obesity over time. You're actually better off getting the full fat version and using less of it. Because remember, 1 gram of fat will provide you with 9 calories. So remember that the calories are what you burn. So instead of looking at full fat as too many calories, actually change your thinking and look at it as though those 9 calories will take you longer to burn and keep you feeling satisfied and full longer. So rather than eat the refined breakfast cereal, for example, and feeling hungry already, maybe an hour later, you'd be better off having full fat calories and like from nuts or from even a full fat yogurt or, even eggs. So these will sustain you for hours before you actually get hungry again. Myth number 6. Let's take a look at yogurt for a minute, because yogurt is good for the bacteria in your belly. And then the one is actually true, but only for yogurt containing what are called live active cultures. And unfortunately, most yogurt products are loaded with sugar, causing more harm than good. In fact, the added sugar promotes unhealthy gut bacteria growth. So if you're trying to eat yogurt for the good bacteria, but it's full of sugar, you may be promoting the bad bacteria more than you are, putting good bacteria in your microbiome. Now, Lactobacillus acidophilus is the bacteria you want to look for in yogurt. So again, that's Lactobacillus acidophilus. Your best bet is to purchase plain, sugar-free yogurt, that with live active cultures, and then add your own flavors. Make a smoothie with it, or add berries to it, or add honey or cinnamon to it to give it flavor. So take a look at your yogurt. If it doesn't state live active cultures on the label, stop buying it. You're actually eating a dessert disguised as a healthy option. Myth number 7, let's take a look at eggs some more. Egg yolks raise your cholesterol. There has been much debate about the health of eggs over the years, and the verdict is in, folks. Eggs are healthy. While it's true that egg yolks contain dietary cholesterol, research has proven that dietary cholesterol has almost nothing to do with your blood cholesterol levels. What causes higher risk of heart disease is actually inflammation caused by high blood sugar and toxicity. Eggs are actually one of the healthiest foods you can eat. One egg has only 75 calories, but 7 grams of high quality protein, along with iron, vitamins, minerals, and carotenoids. The egg is noted as a powerhouse of disease-fighting nutrients like lutein and zeaxanthin, which are both antioxidants. So skip the egg white only breakfast and indulge in the yolk and just eat eggs. As your mother or my mother and grandmother always used to say, in moderation with everything, but eggs are not a problem. Myth number 8, organic produce is more nutritious. Well, here's the truth about buying organic. Folks, spending the extra buck on organic fruits and vegetables may help you dodge pesticides and toxicity, absolutely true. But there is zero convincing evidence yet that conventional and organic produce are different in their nutritional composition. So if you're concerned about the quality of your produce, but can't afford the price of organic, opt instead for locally grown and seasonal vegetables and fruits. Chances are these items will have less chemical exposure if they're grown locally. And when foods don't have to travel so far, they can be harvested closer to the time they are meant to be eaten, ensuring optimal nutritional content. And the other caveat I always like to make sure people know about is also you can look up what's called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. This is a list of fruits and vegetables that are either the most or the least treated with pesticides during the growing process. It is recommended, absolutely, to buy the list of the Dirty Dozen vegetables and fruits. Buy those organically. But the Clean 15 does not need to be purchased organically. And if you carry that list in your pockets or in your purse or something at the grocery store, it can really help you be better educated on which vegetables and fruits you really should buy organic and which ones you don't have to. Myth number 9. It's best to eat many small meals throughout the day. Now, there have been many claims that eating small, frequent meals throughout the day can help increase your metabolism. And I'm sorry to say, there is actually no evidence to back up this claim. The truth is, whether you eat 2 meals per day or 5 or 6 smaller meals, the outcome has the exact same effect on the total calories you burn. We will, put some of the research up tomorrow in our Facebook group, but the Journal of Nutrition, in a detailed review of the possible mechanics mechanistic explanations for a metabolic advantage of nibbling meals pattern failed to reveal significant benefit in respect to energy expenditure. And that's by the NIH on PubMed by the federal government and all of the research. So eating small meals throughout the day may help curb your appetite by preventing excessive hunger, but the benefits stop there. It does not help you from a nutrition perspective or a nutrient or calorie perspective. And myth number 10, people who work out need extra protein. Now this, folks, this may be true for some Olympic or professional athlete, but those of us that are the average person do not need to consume additional protein when we work out. Most of us are already consuming more protein than is recommended. The average person consumes about 77.5 grams of protein a day. That's actually 150% of the dietary reference intake for a 145-pound adult. So let's take a look at how much protein you really do need. Protein, like carbohydrates and fats, is a macronutrient. So we do need it. But according to the National Institutes for Health, the recommended daily allowance for protein intake is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Or this number may be better for us here in the United States because it's 0.36 grams per pound of body weight, because we usually weigh ourselves in pounds, not kilograms. However, they also note that a healthy diet can consist of 10 to 35% protein. So here's a summary of the recommendations. Healthy adults or sedentary individuals, again, it's 0.8 grams per kilogram. Now, a pregnant woman needs a little bit more. That's 1.1 grams per kilogram. And once a woman has the baby and she's breastfeeding, a lactating woman needs even more protein at 1.3 grams per kilogram. An endurance athlete, like someone who runs marathons, for example, will need more at 1.2 to 1.4 grams per kilogram. A strength athlete, again, someone who's lifting a lot of weight, would be like when I was a bodybuilder in my 20s, I would take in as much as 1.6 grams per kilogram. But determining your personalized protein needs involves a little math. So let's go through how to do this. So first of all, to start, you need to convert your weight into kilograms. And what you can do, if you have a piece of paper and you're really into this, write this down. You would take your weight in pounds and multiply it by 0.454. So again, you would take your weight in pounds and multiply it by 0.454 and come up with your answer. And that's your weight in kilograms. Next, multiply your weight in kilograms by the recommended protein value in grams to obtain your total daily protein needs. Here's the example. So if you weigh 140 pounds and you multiply that by 0.454, this equates to 63.56 kilograms. And a healthy person requires 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So we would multiply your weight in kilograms at 63.56 by 0.8 and come up with 50 grams of protein per day. So this person in this example, it should be eating 50 grams of protein per day. And they start working out. There is no need to increase their protein intake. Okay? So let's now take a look at some examples of sources of protein. And here's a list of some common foods and their protein content. So 1 ounce is 28 grams of protein, equals the following. 1 ounce or 28 grams of meat, I'm sorry, 1 ounce or 28 grams of protein equates to the following: 1 ounce of meat, 1 ounce of poultry, 1 ounce of seafood would equal 28 grams. So you notice if you require 50 grams a day, you're only eating like 1 ounce of meat. Where, remember, if people go out to a meal at a restaurant and they order prime rib and it's a 12 ouncer, folks, that's 10 or 11 ounces more than you need in a day. It's like, what? That's a lot less meat and protein than we actually, than we typically do eat. Now, a quarter cup of cooked beans equals 28 grams. 1 egg actually equals 28 grams. 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, a ½ ounce of seeds, and a ½ ounce of nuts all equate to about 28 grams of protein. So you can see, excuse me, how meat consumption can easily put you over your daily intake. A 6-ounce steak equals 168 grams of protein. And most people order the 12 ounce at least. So as you can see, many of us are eating way more protein in a day than we actually require. So let's look at this myth countdown. I know I've covered a lot. And if you have any questions, of course, we're here to help at Discover Health Functional Medicine Center. But here are the 10 myths we just debunked. Myth number 1, all calories are created equal. Myth number 2, carbs make you fat. Myth number 3, healthy food is more expensive. Myth number 4, gluten-free is the only way to go. Myth number 5, low-fat foods are better for you. Myth number 6, yogurt is good for the bacteria in your belly. Myth number 7, egg yolks raise your cholesterol. Myth number 8, organic produce is more nutritious. Myth number 9, it's best to eat many small meals throughout the day. And finally, myth number 10, people who work out need extra protein. Now, eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated, and it's possible on any budget. When planning your trip to the grocery store, avoid clipping coupons, actually, because they are typically only offered for processed items. You've got to really look through and pick out the coupons, if there are any, for the whole foods that are out there. Take an inventory of what is already in your kitchen before you go shopping to avoid overbuying, which of course leads to food waste. This is one of the best tips I always tell everyone: shop the perimeter of the grocery store. This is where the healthier items live because they're whole foods. The center of the store contains boxed and processed foods, which should be avoided. Another tip: try new recipes or ways of cooking favorite foods. Veggies can be prepared in so many different ways, and please make sure you use spices, so that, and many different kinds of spices, so that you keep variety in what you're doing. Next, look for local in-season produce, and finally, replace high-fat proteins with plant-based options. Now remember, and after every one of the webinars that we give here from Discover Health Functional Medicine Center, we always list tomorrow and post in our Discover Health Facebook group all of the links and all of the resources that we use to put the talk together. So if you want to go on and read more of the information or do some of your own research, make sure you just sign on to our Discover Health Facebook group tomorrow. If you're already a member, then you're going to see it pop up. And if you're not already a member of our Discover Health Facebook group, because it is a closed group, as groups are on Facebook, just go to Facebook and go to our Discover Health Functional Medicine Center Facebook page and just simply click the button to request to join our Discover Health Facebook group. All are welcome. And it is a place where you can get all sorts of information, and our health coach Trish Chappett posts things on a regular basis there as well as information. And some of the categories of resources that we will post tomorrow are the nutrition myths, calories explained, carbs explained, healthy food in your personal health, gluten in your body, protein in your body. So all of these different links we will post tomorrow. And if you also would like them, but you don't do Facebook, then by all means, just reach out to us at discoverhealthcoaching@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to send you the list. So thank you so much for joining me today. I know some of the information I provided may take a little time to sink in. Feel free to ask questions through our Discover Health Facebook group, or you can also email, again, discoverhealthcoaching@gmail.com. And if you need help personalizing any of this information or are interested in health coaching support through the Detox Plus program, also reach out through our email, discoverhealthcoaching@gmail.com. Now, if anyone has any questions to ask at this time that we finish the presentation itself, please post them below in the chat, or I'm going to stop sharing the slides and I'm going to come back on with my video. And you can, of course, ask them verbally or through the chat, either way, whichever way you are more comfortable with. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn my video back on, but you don't even have to turn your video back on. If you want to ask a question orally, do that. You do it whichever way is comfortable for you. So would frozen veggies be a good substitute for fresh if they have no additives, etc.? Yeah, frozen fruits and vegetables. For example, in my smoothies in the mornings, I use frozen fruits. And sometimes I may buy vegetables like different greens fresh, but I don't use them up in time. And I see that they might, I realize that I haven't used them up in time. So I package them in the freezer, and that will instill the nutrients still in them. And then I'll use them frozen in my smoothies in the morning. So that is something that is possible. When it comes to, obviously the best is fresh and local. From there, some things do have to come from away, and be more concerned about the organic with that, of course. And again, the clean 15 versus the dirty dozen. But yes, frozen is not a bad way to go. You definitely want frozen more than you want canned. Absolutely. Well, great. Thank you for coming and sharing this time with me. I hope you've learned something this evening through the presentation, and look for our webinar next month. We do this once a month. Next month, health coach Trish from our office will present, and then in December I'm back on. We started to alternate our presentations, but I hope you do get some information from them that helps you. So everyone have a great night, and we'll see you again on the webinar in the future. Take care, everyone.